Hi, Mr. Richards here. Let's take a look at graphing linear equations. And our objective today is to identify linear equations, intercepts, and zeros, and to graph linear equations. After this, we'll actually solve linear equations by graphing. But one of our key concepts today is the standard form of a linear equation. And that standard form is ax plus by equals c, and a has got to be greater than 0 or equal to. A and b are not 0. A, b, and c are integers with the greatest common factor of 1. And one of the examples here, 3x plus 2y equals 5, where a is 3, b is 2, and c is 5. Sounds a little bit complicated, but let's see what we're actually going to do with it today. First, we'll determine whether each equation is a linear equation and write the equation in standard form. If it is a linear equation, that is. Now, in 5x plus 3 equals xy plus 2, actually we have an xy here. And since the term xy has two variables here, it cannot be written in form. Or cannot be written in the form ax plus by equals c. And since we cannot do that, this is actually not a linear equation. But in our form here, 3/4 x equals y plus 8, this can be written in standard form. And the way we're going to do this is to first look at the y and move this y over. So we're going to subtract y from both sides. That one cancels, and we're left with 3/4 x minus y equals 8. Now, the problem we have here, and this is not in standard form yet, even though we have the x, the y, and our c, is this 3/4. We need to get rid of the 3/4. And the way we're going to do that is to look at the denominator, 4, and multiply each term by the 4, because 4 times 3/4 is just 1. So that becomes x minus 4y equals 32. And that is the standard form of the equation, and it is linear. Let's move on. In our second example, let's find intercepts from a graph. We'll find the x and y intercepts of the segment graphed below. Now, we'll start with the x-intercept, and the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. Well, our x-intercept is here at 4. So we can cross out A, and we can cross out C. Then our y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Well, it's at 200. Well, we can cross out D, and that leaves us with B. So again, the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis, and the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. If we look at this, determine the axis, well, it's either here or here, and we'll start with our x-intercept. So our x-intercept is 10, and our y-intercept, if we look at how the graph is going up, it's counting up by hundreds on the side, but then there's one in between, so that means 50, so our y-intercept is going to be 250. If we continue on, what if we find intercepts from the table? Now, they give us a graph too to support, but a box of peanuts is poured into bags at the rate of 4 ounces per second. The table shows the function relating the weight of peanuts in the box and the time in seconds the peanuts have been pouring out of the box. Find the x and y intercepts of the graph of the function. Well, the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. And where it crosses the x-axis is not when x equals 0, but it's when y equals 0. So for that x-intercept, which is when y equals 0, That is right there on our table. So we have 500 seconds. Our y-intercept is when x is going to equal 0. Well, that is at 2,000 ounces. When it comes time to describe what the intercepts means in terms of the situation, well, for our x-intercept, we have 0 ounces left after 500 seconds. So no ounces left of peanuts. For our y-intercept, well, we had 2,000 ounces before the pouring began. One that's just a table. Jules has a gas card for a local gas station. The table shows the function relating the amount of money on the card and the number of times he has stopped to purchase gas. Find the x and the y-intercepts. Well, for the x-intercept, that is going to be where the graph crosses the x-axis, which is when y equals 0, which on our table is right there, so that's going to be 5 gas stops. As for our y-intercept, that is going to be the time when x equals 0, which is up there at $125. Now when it comes time to interpret these intercepts, well, for the x-intercept, we have 5 gas stops, $0. So we could say after 5 stops, there is no money left on the card. And as for the y-intercept, well, that's where we started. Intercept, maybe? When starting, there was $125 on the card. Let's continue. To graph by using the x and y intercepts with 4x minus y equals 4, the first thing we're going to do is to find the x-intercept. And in order to do that, we need to let y equal 0. So we'll have the equation 4x minus y equals 4. But again, we're going to let our y equal 0. Now we want to solve for x. Well, this just simplifies to 4x equals 4. Divide by 4 on both sides, and x equals 1. So what this means is the x-intercept is 1. Now, for the y-intercept, let's make our x equal 0. So when we have 4x minus y equals 4, and we let our x equaling 0, this will simplify into 4 times 0 being 0, so negative y equals 4, or y equals a negative 4. So the y-intercept is where x equals 0 and y equals negative 4. And in order to make this a line now, just draw in your line connecting your x and your y intercept as straight as you can. And there is our line. So again, to find the x-intercept, let y equal 0 and solve, because then if y is 0, this means 1, 0, and that was the point there. To find your y-intercept, x needs to equal 0, so this was 0, -4, which is this right there. Let's move on. Graphing by making a table. Graph y equals 2x plus 2 by making a table. If we make a simple x, y chart here, I would encourage you to let x be -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Then when you plug this back into the equation, put in -2 for x. 2 times -2 is -4, plus 2 is a -2, so we're going to be graphed at -2, -2. 2 times -1 is a -2, plus 2 is 0, so this is going to be -1, 0. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2, so we're at 0, 2. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 2 is 4, so 1 is going to be at 4, and you can see where this is starting to form a line. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, so we have 2, 6. Our 5 points show that we do have a linear function. You can sketch in your line through the points. You could also graph by making a table.